As a part of our international initiatives, Team Binding Bharat has come up with concept of connecting leaders, professors, diplomats, youth, and now for this very conference, we have mental health experts, counselors, pediatricians, psychiatrists, psychologists, and child experts of nation states all across the world. Speaking in front of this August gathering, which comprises of impressive panel of experts, I would say that 2020 has been a rough year for everybody. But teens and young adults are among those hit hardest by mental health concerns. The uncertainty of when is school going to open or when can we see our friends and hug them have definitely created a psychological barrier. The structure of life, at least how life used to look, vanished completely overnight. The phrase social distancing is now part of our everyday vocabulary, and masks are now an essential part of our wardrobe. When it comes to schools, colleges, universities, and various exams that follow them, there will be a tough readjustment period for students, whether they are meeting virtually, in person, or using a hybrid model. Students have to let go of their expectations for what a typical academic year or semester looks like and adjust to a new way of doing things. You may have already noticed that this adjustment process can come with its own set of difficulties, behavioral challenges, and mental health challenges in children. Being aware of some of the changes you are likely to see in the kids is an important step in helping them adjust comfortably to this new normal. Well, today's topic for discussion is impact of pandemic on children. Let's hope for a fruitful discussion ahead and open the floor to everyone. Up first, I would like to invite our guest speaker and a dear friend of mine, Ms. Shivani Agarwal from Vancouver, Canada. She's a clinical counselor, also an art therapist, and vice president of British Columbia Art Therapy Association. She's also the director of Shivani's Wellness, which is culturally blended wellness center. We welcome you, Shivani.
Hi, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. It is so lovely to connect with such amazing and brilliant minds all over the world and, with a common goal. Thank you for inviting me to this. And I would love to share a little bit about the recent trends that I've been noticing and the work that I've been doing with regards to the impact that this pandemic has had on children. Children, teenagers, young adults, anybody who kind of fits that age group and is, going through the pandemic just like you and I. I can start by just talking about how very important childhood is in just our lives. So it is the most fundamental developmental part of a developmental stage of our life that actually goes into defining who we are going to be as people and how we are going to form attachments with the rest of the world around us. So all of the people who are going through this stage, along with going through a pandemic, their time right now is to learn, to explore, to interact with the world. But instead, they're just reacting to the world because safety, which is a very, very important part of this stage, that has been challenged. They're going through their everyday life, experiencing a threat, not just to themselves, to their families, to their career, to their school life, to their friends. This is a time when, we explore the world in the safety of our home. We're given a choice, not because we have to. So a lot of the things are going sideways for a lot of students growing up right now, as you must have noticed in your own areas. So the pandemic, which is a threat that has not only been introduced to our environment, but also inside our home. Now, instead of growing and development, everybody's main motive is just to survive. We are constantly functioning in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So all of the children growing up, when we have our normal physical milestones like a child learns to walk, a child learns to play, a child learns to grab things, stand, all of those things. Just like that, we have a certain amount of emotional milestones, like developing trust with our environment, developing our identity, developing interaction with our peers, developing interaction with others. So all of these things, getting love and acceptance within society, within our world, all of these emotional milestones that are also very important parts of who we are, they are somewhere not being achieved for kids, or they're getting hindered, or they're being interrupted. Kids are, although they're spending more time at home, they are spending time in fear of either losing a parent, they are spending time being helpless, feeling very uncertain about what's going to happen. And that is giving rise to a lot of anxiety at a very early age. A lot of children coming in with lack of motivation, lack of direction in their life, a lot of depressive symptoms. It's also the first time parents are spending so much time with children that they're not usually used to. So they're getting to see them morning to night. They're getting to see who they're going to be at school, at home, without that sort of boundary, without that freedom, without a privacy that the child gets to express themselves outside. So there's pushback on both sides. And usually, in certain households where it's one or the other, it's either authoritarian household where the parent says, it's going to be my way, and the child says, no, it's going to be my way, because they're learning to develop their identity. There's a clash. And then again, it's the survival of the fittest, because both at this time don't really know what to do. Our nervous system is experiencing something like this for the first time. So it's very interesting, especially sitting in family counseling sessions, even just educating the family about mental health is important, not just for the parent, but also for the child. Another area that I'm noticing a few different trends coming through are children who are obviously taking classes online, but they might have special needs. They might already have diagnoses of ADHD, autism, or social anxiety, things like that. And working with those kids specifically has been a big challenge, because they don't usually have the resources they would find in school. They don't even have the opportunities right now to interact with their classmates the same way, to learn, to figure out a kid already with a diagnosis. How does that person go to school? They can't get up and go on Zoom, sit in the same place the whole day. If somebody has a diagnosis like attention deficit disorder or anything like that. So kids going to classrooms, sitting there, doing all of that is one thing, but the kids with special needs, their parents are having to then set apart time, create another boundary from work from home to dedicate time just for that. So that's definitely a challenge that I've seen so many parents brave at this time. But there's definitely so much that can be done in areas where kids need special attention. Another thing that is a really big part of us growing up is rites of passage, in the form that as adults we get married, or we have a job, or we celebrate birthdays, we celebrate these moments in our life that actually introduce us into society, or they even tell us, okay, now you've grown up, or now this is my role in the world. So when kids' graduations get canceled, when they don't get to celebrate like their first day at school, or they don't get to meet newer friends, they don't get to do birthdays anymore, that itself takes away that achievement, that reward that they get for working so hard consistently. And then that again impacts the way that they grow, because they're like, well, what are we looking forward to? So it's almost like all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, but except the play is the reward, which even as adults we can't really get. So it's really impacting children a lot, because as adults we've kind of gone through that. We're still able to rationally make sense of what's going on. But if you tell a kid, nope, you can't go to play because you just can't go to play, they get frustrated, as you may have noticed, whoever has kids at home. So that's a huge part that's coming through too. Another thing is loss. We as adults experience loss in so many different ways, but especially for children. they're expressing grief because either they've lost a loved one due to COVID, or they've lost certainty, they've lost childhood, they've lost freedom. All of these are very big losses that they're then going to grieve, and grief looks like sadness. But sadness isn't always the easiest way people express themselves. So it's often shown as anger or frustration. So then we have 5-6 people in the family frustrated and angry at the same time, not really realizing that it's actually sadness and there's so much underneath it that they can explore together. They can just be kind to one another instead of suppressing one another. And then that continues to build, and that plus hormonal changes growing up. So imagine a teenager, also give them the grief of a pandemic, and then we have Mahabharata at home every day. But yeah, that along with one of the saddest aspects that I've noticed is kids experiencing domestic abuse and domestic violence, the rates that have gone up significantly. Because earlier when kids were at school, even if parents had disputes and there was already domestic violence at home, it was going unnoticed. But now kids are in the situation, already helpless, feeling lack of control. So I know I'm putting a lot of heavy kind of trends right away in the beginning, but it is just to give a quick snapshot of, what we're dealing with isn't an everyday, isn't a piece of cake. But kudos to the parents, to the teachers, to the healthcare workers that are still managing at such a time. A few things, to kind of uplift us to, or to just kind of keep us focused on the goal, which may not be super far away to make it through the pandemic, is really encouraging everybody to set very good boundaries, whether it's between work and home, even though all of it is in the same environment. So if someone's doing a 9-to-5, making sure that it is just a 9-to-5, and after 5 you're focusing on the family, or you're spending time with your children, or kids aren't just in front of their laptop doing school the whole day. They do have their breaks. They do have this is school, this is home, because that is really going to help create some structure. Also bringing creativity into everyday life. Motivating one another, being kind to one another, and most importantly, checking in on each other to help each other, not checking in, hey, did you do your homework? Hey, did you do this? Hey, how much money did you make? What did you do? Instead of blaming, just kind of being kind to one another, motivating one another, educating your own self on mental health and your kids on mental health, opening up those conversations. And if parents are struggling emotionally because this is new for you, this is not something you're also supposed to know, to notice that, to recognize that, and get help. Because if you get help, your kids will too. And if you get help, you're going to create a safer environment for your kids to grow up in. So yeah, that's just a few of my cents. And I'm so excited to hear what everybody has to say, and would so open to any kind of discussion. And I'll pass it back over to Kanupriya. Thank you so much for having me as a part of this discussion. And my hope is that you stay safe.